Okay, so we took a little break to go into the story of Kislev. We'll go back to the Maimer. We have one more part to finish. We'll finish the Maimer. Good morning. So we're on page 169. And we're at the line that's at the bottom of the page 169. So we concluded that when a person engages in parnasa, and this is only an example, but really it applies to everything that we're involved with in the Gashmistic world, we have to have in mind two general things. Number one, that the bracha comes from Hashem, and that's really what it all depends on. If Hashem has given me the bracha or not, and therefore I should do everything I can to be a vessel to receive Hashem's bracha. But the second thing is, in order for that bracha to be translated into physical, it should manifest itself in this physical world in a form of physical bracha, whether it be money or health or anything else. For that, I have to make the keli. But he explained that we should remember it's only a keli, it's only a vessel, and the purpose of it is to conceal the blessing of Hashem, that it happens in a natural order. So here comes the conclusion. V'hine, achar hadvorim ho'ela. After, and based on everything we said before, page 168, kol adam achored al nafshay. Every person who is concerned about their own soul, ve'ino reitza loses migrois v'pchinas hachesed elyon. He doesn't want to decrease the divine kindness sheniksev al nafshay b'Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim, that was designated for him Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Remember, we said that this is like a budget. Person has a certain amount of money that's just limited, X amount of money. And now he can budget, which means that some of the money is going to go for food, some will go for clothing, some will go for rent, some will go for traveling. But if I take money for one thing and I use it more in one area, I'll have less for the other area. That's what a budget is. So the same applies to Hashem's chesed. Hashem gives us a limited amount of chesed, every person. Could be a lot of chesed, but it still has a limit. And that chesed is distributed to health and wealth and happiness and children and a home and a job and all the things that go on in our life. So a person who really wants the chesed should be for things that are really more important. He doesn't want he doesn't want it to draw down all the chesed, chas v'shalom, just in financial matters. He doesn't feel that urge that he must become wealthy. Ella, what is his drive? What is his desire? The males nafshay ki yirav v'nafshay be'beisei. He just wants to provide for himself and his family. They should have what to eat. They should have clothing. V'dira, they should have a place to live. And that's what everything they need for their sustenance. In other words, the basic needs, he's not looking for wealth to become a very wealthy person. Zois Yosem Alibe, page 171. So this is what he should take to heart, based on everything we learned before. Yachshev erech sach mois hanitzach loy loitzor selo. The person should calculate the amount of money that he needs. These are my expenses, so I need X amount of money to live off. V'yivakish rachmim Hashem. So when he davens to Hashem, he should ask Hashem, sheyishlach loy chazdei hatov. Hashem should send him his kindness, but the kindness would be such kindness sheyim and a shepazu, that he'd have these blessings in his life. That he figured out that he needs, let's say, X amount of money to have all those, he'll soon give him a mushal, have all his needs, and that's what I'm asking for. Now that I know how much money I'm looking for, he should prepare a garment, a garment that's appropriate for this amount. For example, very interesting, very unusual in a mimer to be so technical, financial. For example, if he needs 500 ruble. Now, I didn't live in those days, so I don't know what that means. 500 ruble a week, 500 ruble a month, 500 ruble a year. But if he needs 500 ruble, Yimtzele Asek, he should find a business. He should find a business that more or less will bring him in that amount of money. And then we're talking about a person who's doing business, not just having a job, an employee somewhere. He has to invest 1,000 ruble or 1,500 ruble, and to find out if he has to find out how does it work in the world of business. What's the percentage that if I want to have a certain income, how much is it expected of me to invest? So let's say to earn 500 ruble, it's expected me to invest 1,000 ruble or 1,500 ruble. That's normal. So if I prepare that garment, then Hashem will send me his bracha through this garment. All the way at the bottom, there's one more line. And this is what it says, the pasuk in the Chumash, where it says Hashem will bless you in everything that you do. Sorry, I think I mentioned this before, that the Gemara, the Medrash says, that because it says Hashem will bless you, I would think that I don't have to do anything. It's just Hashem's blessing, so I could sit back and just take it all in. So the pasuk adds b'chol asher tasa, and everything that you do. Davka. Why? If you wouldn't prepare the garment, then even though Hashem already designated chesed for this person, and Hashem sent his chesed on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur for this person, but that chesed will not be translated in Gashmizdika sustenance. He will have spiritual benefits, not in this world, but in the spiritual world, in the world to come. But down here, God forbid, he'll be lacking physical sustenance. He will be punished for this. What does it mean, punished for this? In other words, this is your negligence. When you daven to Hashem and Chas v'Shalom Hashem doesn't give the bracha, this is not in your hands. Hashem made a decision, for whatever reason known to him, not to give the bracha. But when Hashem gives you the bracha, and the bracha is all ready, and Hashem says, all you need to do is to provide the vessel, the channel, and you don't do it, that means that the fact that you have nothing to provide for your family is you're guilty. You're the one that's making it happen. By doing that, he's stealing from his own soul and the soul of his family. So that's the normal thing to do. But a person shouldn't increase his business activity to be involved in an excessive way in his business, because that's unnecessary. If the business is only a levush, it's only a garment, it's only a conduit through which Hashem gives me the parnasam. So what do I need to make a garment that's bigger than what's necessary? In fact, gam im yarbe masa matan, even if he will increase all these activities, ma'yeh, what will he accomplish? The yiga lorik, all his labor, all his hard work will be for in vain, for no purpose. Being that the amount that Hashem allotted to this person, that amount he can get in a smaller garment. So that means that the garment that he is setting up is loy tzarech, is not necessary. Because in truth, even though it looks that way, but it's not the involvement in my business that's bringing me the parnasa. It's Hashem, birchas Hashem, it's Hashem's bracha. V'hinei 172, habracha hoyse yechoyle l'smashem b'lubus poches mizeh. The bracha of Hashem could come to me in a garment that's not so big, in a smaller garment, which means less involved in my business activity. So the person that increases, he doesn't get any benefit because it's Hashem's bracha, and Hashem's bracha is already limited in a certain way. And whether I have a bigger garment, a smaller garment, makes no difference because it's not the garment that produces the results. Not only it makes no difference, it does damage. If I invest more time than I should in the Gashmizdika Parnasa, not only it doesn't bring me Parnasa, but actually it's going to hurt my Parnasa. What could this be compared to? Think of a physical garment. A person tailors a garment for himself. And when you make a garment, can be this group, and the garment has to be according to the measurement of your body. So a taller person is a bigger garment, and a shorter person is a smaller garment. So if he is 2 cubits tall, and then he makes a garment that has either 3 cubits or 4 cubits, so much more than what he's supposed to have. It's longer than his size. This does damage. Actually, it'll cause him to fall and stumble. So if a person puts on a garment that's longer than his size, they're going to step on it, trip on it, and get hurt. The same is also spiritual. Okay, the mashal we understand, but spiritually, so what if I made a bigger garment? Why does it do damage? So the answer is, the reason why it does damage is because, what does it mean? What is the implication if I spend more time in the business than I should? The implication is that somewhere, someplace, I don't really believe that the parnasa is completely, totally from Hashem. I believe that my actual involvement in the business produces the results. That's what gives me money. So that's why I'm putting more time into it. So when I don't have the proper emunah and trust that Hashem gives me the bracha, that itself could block the bracha of Hashem.
So what if you're not getting so much money?
What if you don't get so much money?
Like, how do you know, like, when is enough to stop, to continue?
No, so we said a person should calculate more or less, what do I need for my food, for my clothing, for my rent? What are the basic needs of a person?
Yeah, but so what happens if it doesn't reach the amount of money that he needs?
Then you have to work more hours. In other words, he's talking about a person that he doesn't have to work more hours in order to. First of all, he's not talking about a job, if you notice. He's talking about business, where the business is something which I could choose, pick and choose how many hours I'm going to spend. A job, if somebody hires you and says, I hired you to work from 9 to 5, say, I learned a mimer, you don't have to put so many hours into it. I'm leaving at 1 o'clock. And the guy says, okay, when you leave, don't come back and you don't have a job. Because a job is a job. And a job, it depends, how much they'll pay you. You can't just say less hours is good enough. Business is something which depends on me, and I can invest how much I want. And if I trust in Hashem, but you have to put in the hours that are necessary also. A person can't say, okay, I'm going to learn in the morning for a few hours. I'll learn in the afternoon for a few hours. I'll do my business activity for 1 hour, and Hashem will send. That's not a keli. It has to be something that in the natural order, anybody, Jewish or not Jewish, that's what they would need to do in order to bring parnasa. That's the kind of work you have to do. That's called teva. And if you do it like that, you have the bracha. So you need both things. You need, number one, the trust in Hashem that He gives you parnasa. That makes me a vessel for Hashem's bracha. And I need to do the Gashmisdika thing that makes me a vessel that the bracha comes down by Gashmis. So if I'm investing more hours than I should, I'm making a statement. You know, in English they say actions speak louder than words. Not only actions make a statement, but they speak louder than words. So therefore, when I'm investing a lot of time, it's as if I'm making a statement. I don't believe that everything is only from Hashem. I believe that the work that I do is what brings the parnasa. And when a person has that kind of feeling, then they'll actually put more hours into it. So therefore, the mushal that when you make the garment too long, you can trip over it and get hurt, applies spiritually. When you invest too much time in the garment, that means you're putting more trust in the garment, less in Hashem. So then it's actually hurting my ability to get Hashem's bracha. You know, the Yidden in the Midbar, they had food that came from Shemayim, the man. So it's interesting that in the Chumash, when it talks about the man, there's a pasuk where it says Hashem tested you with the man. And Mefarshim, different Mefarshim discuss what was the test. I mean, it's a miracle. What's the test? So some say the fact that they didn't have a clear taste in it. But on the other hand, it had all the taste in it. There's a little bit of a struggle to explain what was the test. But one of the ways of explaining it is the fact that every single day they had to trust that tomorrow Hashem is going to make food come down from Shemayim, because it was not a natural thing. And therefore, the trust in Hashem was on a daily basis. They say that a Chassid once came to his Rebbe, and his Rebbe asked him, so what do you do for parnasa? He says, I have a job, 9 to 5, and this is my job, and that's my parnasa. So he says, so what do you do for bitachon? In other words, people who have business, every day they need bitachon, that I get customers, and that the customers pay what they owe, and the product that I have is going to sell. Because you really realize every single day there's something, 1 week you make more money, 1 week you make less money. Your bitachon Hashem is more active. When you get a regular salary every single week, it's harder to have that bitachon, because it looks like, okay, it's normal. I work at the end of the week, I get this amount of money. But the truth is, even that, even though it looks like it's very clear, I work this job, this person pays me, even that is because it's from Hashem. So again, you need to make the vessel, and you have to have trust in Hashem. This is a part in the Maimon we skipped in the beginning, but it's one of the examples where the Torah talks about hair. Remember, the whole Maimon in the beginning was about hair. About there are times we have to shave the hair, and times where you let the hair grow. So, Cyrus Haresh and Meshachim HaChochma, the hair that's in the head, from the head, comes from the wisdom. It's excessive energy from the brain. It's called excess intellectual energy. We learned before in the beginning of the Maimer that if the person is a Torah scholar, especially a brilliant Torah scholar, a genius, then even the excess energy, which is the sichas chulin, the casual conversation, has a lot of depth to it and a lot of meaning to it. I mean, we have an example from the story of Yitas Kislev. If you remember, one of the things I told you in the story of Yitas Kislev was that the Alter Rebbe said that he didn't want to disconnect himself from the Baal Shem Tov, even for a moment, even if it was only verbally, and even if it was only about a nuance of the Baal Shem Tov. What was that? Baal Shem Tov, when he would daven, he would make a certain sound that sounded like af, af. Between words, he heard af. The Alter Rebbe did the same thing. So the Masnagdim, in their paper that they filed, a complaint and accusation against the Alter Rebbe, they wrote, what does it mean? Af in Hebrew means wrath. And the Alter Rebbe is praying that Hashem should send his wrath on the Tsar. That's how they interpret it. So you see how much he hates the country, and he hates the king, and he wants to take over the kingdom. And the Baal Shem Tov did the same. So the Alter Rebbe, why did the Baal Shem Tov say those words? And the Alter Rebbe said, I could have given them any answer just to satisfy them, make something up, not true, and satisfy them, and that would be it. But the Alter Rebbe said, I didn't want to disconnect from the Baal Shem Tov, even for a moment, even if it was just verbal, and even if it's about just a certain nuance. So, and the Alter Rebbe said it was very painful to him, one of the most painful things, that they had to reveal to them the deep secret in the words after the Baal Shem Tov said when he davened. If you listen to a second, this is the Alter Rebbe, who was teaching Chassidus and teaching Maimorim. And of course, it was very difficult and very painful to have to explain these deep, lofty concepts to the people in the Russian courtroom, because they understand it in a very coarse way. They don't really remember. This is a time where even revealing Chassidus to Jews was a big thing, revolutionary. That's why he was arrested. And now he's going to reveal it to people that are not at all ready for such deep, lofty concepts. And nevertheless, he had to reveal it. On top of that, he revealed the secret of what the word af. In other words, here's an example of a big tzaddik that just a nuance of his, just the sound that he makes, had something which was so deep in so much depth. Even the Alter Rebbe's Chassidim didn't know what was the depth, what was the sort of mystical reason why he was davened, that sound came out of his mouth. So that's by Talmud Chacham. But ordinary people, that their intellect to begin with is not on that high level, so the excess is something negative. How does this apply to our thing about work, about business? Same thing with Masa Matan. When a person makes garments that are more, it's the same idea. If you pay attention, you'll see it's mamish the same principle. Again, what's the purpose of the garment? The purpose of the garment is to conceal the light of Hashem. The light of Hashem is very lofty. It's a spiritual chesed, and it needs to be concealed to be translated into physical food and clothing and a home and so on. But you have to make this concealment in a limited way. If you overdo it, you go overboard, then the concealment becomes counterproductive and could lead to negative results. Just like we learned about in the beginning of the Maimer, that Hashem's light is concealed so Klippa could have sustenance. But then if you overdo it, then it gives too much chayas to the Klippa, and then they become very powerful, and that tips the scale to their side. So basically, the real, I guess, novelty in this Maimer, what really is brought out in this Maimer, is something which we know from everywhere you look in Chassidus, especially in the Rebbe's Sichos. It's very clear, but it doesn't explain this point. It's very clear that you must make a vessel. You must make a garment. The garment is going to a doctor. The garment is setting up a strong army to protect us. The garment is going to work and going to doing business. That's the garment. But why is it important to have the garment? This Maimon explains the reason. Because otherwise, you have Hashem's chesed, it's there, but it remains in the spiritual realm. And the garment conceals the light and brings it down to the physical. So therefore, this garment has to be something which will naturally explain how I'm making this money. At least it looks like that. Yeah.
What was the connection between what you said about the Alter making the sound and what you just?
Because he says that by big Talmidei Chacham, very brilliant people, even a casual statement, something casual, nothing about Torah, not about mitzvahs, like a casual statement about wearing your gloves, wearing your coat outside because it's cold. So it sounds like he's saying something like everybody else would be talking about the subject. But if it's a Talmud Chacham, if you pay attention, you'll see there's something very deep there that you could learn. So I'm giving you an example. This wasn't even a statement. This is just a sound and a nuance that the Baal Shem Tov made this sound af, and yet the Alter Rebbe says there was such a deep secret there that he was pained the fact that he has to explain them what was the hidden reason why he did that. In other words, when you look at someone like a Rebbe, who is a human being, and there are certain nuances, certain things that he says or does, and you say, well, that's because he's just human. But the truth is, by tzaddikim, everything that they do and everything that they say, even things that seem to be very simple, have in it a lot of depth. Someone sent this to me yesterday. I don't know if it's circulating or just supposed to get it. But there's someone talking. This person, I recognize, he was once the borough president of Brooklyn. And he's telling a story. It's just amazing when you hear people tell their personal story. And he says that him and his wife, they had one child, they had a daughter, and they were hoping to have another child. The only problem was that his wife was 48 years old. And at 48, it wasn't really very likely. And not only that, they actually spoke to doctors and they all said to them, forget it, don't even think about it. He would come to the Rebbe every year on a Shana Rabbah to get a bracha. So he came with his wife to get a piece of honey cake, a Shana Rabbah. And then the Rebbe says to them, next year, I'll give you a bracha that you should have an addition to your family. And he said, my life was startled, like, how in the world? Nobody had any idea that this was something we wanted or we were hoping for. We were shocked. And then he says, a month later, she was pregnant. 9 months later, she had the baby girl. And 2 months later, they came back to the Rebbe for Shana Rabbah with the baby. He gave the timeline. A month later, she was pregnant. 9 months later, the baby was born, healthy and fine. And of course, at this age, even if a person has a baby, sometimes chas v'sholom, there's difficulty. Everything was smooth. And they came to the Rebbe. And he says, before he said a word, the Rebbe said, I see you brought the new addition to your family. He was shocked. He said he used the exact same words that he told us a year ago. Besides the fact that you think, well, what a memory. What happened throughout this year? How many people did the Rebbe speak to? How many brachas did the Rebbe give? How many things was the Rebbe involved with? Millions, literally. And the exact same words. So he doesn't say this, but I'm thinking to myself, based on what we're learning now, it lends itself to say that the term the Rebbe used, in addition to your family, also had special meaning to it. Could have said it so many different ways. And therefore, he said it then, and he said it a year later, because there's more to it than what we see on the surface. So therefore, when there's too much concealment, Pegmin b'chokhmah, we're on page 174, this causes a blemish in Chokhmah Shebenev Shalakis. And therefore, the Torah says, Begil Chas Reisha. You have to cut off the hair. It's not your wisdom that brings you the bread. It does say that Chokhmah will bring you life. That's when you use it properly. You use your Chokhmah to make a garment that's with the right measure. Don't make a garment that's too long, and don't make a garment that's too small. What's wrong with making too small? What's wrong if I say to myself, okay, so I won't work so many hours? And the answer is, if you don't work so many hours, again, there's no garment. Of course, in Derech HaTeva, working less hours would not bring these results. So I'm not making a garment that hides Hashem's bracha. 177. Whatever's extra should be removed entirely. Like it says, don't be too smart. What does it mean, too smart? It means use your wisdom just for the measure that you need. And from this, every person could learn how he should conduct himself in his activities of the worldly things. Not to do things that are deceptive in business. A person should do everything he can They should have all those things that are good from a Torah perspective. And he should do whatever is necessary, whatever he sees necessary, that it should be a proper garment. And through this garment, Hashem will send him the bracha. Hashem will do, in other words, if Hashem decides to give me wealth, if it was the small garment that I meant, that's Hashem's choice. I'll be happy to accept it. But I'm not going to sort of make that a priority and give up other brachas because I want to have the bracha of wealth. Hashem knows what's the best for me, and therefore He chooses, and He does the budgeting for us. Here He gives me more, and here He gives me less, and here He does this, and here He does that. But again, someone asked in the class last time, so that's the case, we should be afraid to ask for things. How do I know I'm not making myself problems? And the answer is the things we ask for should all be the basic needs of a person, and that is perfectly okay to ask for, and that's what we're supposed to ask for, and we see that this is part of our davening. So I wanted to give out this sheet. This is just a sort of a conclusion of everything we just did here, and this, especially this last part, if we can give this out. Practically speaking, what would it mean excessive when engaging in parnasa? I put down 4 things. If anyone has an idea of a number 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, you're welcome. So I wrote down like this. This is all coming from Sichos of the Rebbe. One of them is investing too much time, more than I need. Another one is investing too much thought and emotion, more than I need. The third one is when it actually disturbs other spiritual and personal responsibilities. And the fourth thing is when it leads to compromise in Yiddishkeit in any way. So let me say what I mean. First of all, investing too much time. Means every person, again, our time is also limited. So when a person spends more time on their parnasa than they need to, then there's less time spent at home, less time spent with family, less time spent with raising my children, giving them what they need. I remember once someone called me up, wanted some, thank you, so to consult with me. I didn't know this person, never met him before, never met him after. But unfortunately, he was a man that he had a daughter who was involved with drugs, a very bad place. And he sat there crying, and he says to me that, and he was apparently a wealthy person, and he said he spent all this time traveling and running around and making money, and he was very successful, but he said, I really wasn't there for my children. I mean, he blamed it on that. And the reason why his daughter is the way she is, because he really didn't look after her, didn't pay attention, didn't work with her. So basically, number one, excessive means when I'm investing too much time than I really need. Number two, too much thought and emotion. If I believe that Hashem has given me the bracha, and the things that I do begashmis is only a keli, then the emotions that we have wouldn't be, let's say, anger. For example, I'm afraid that someone else is going to be a competition, and because of them, I'm going to lose my money. And then you get all angry, and you want to take revenge, and you want to hurt the other person. That's all if you believe totally and completely that it's the parnasa. If I believe that it's an Hashem, no one can take anything away from me. And if I have that belief, I'll have everything that I need. And the same thing with other areas in life, and health and everything else. I saw letters from the Rabbi where someone writes the Rabbi that they went to a doctor, and the doctor gave some sort of prognosis which wasn't good. So first of all, there's a famous quote from the Tzemach Tzedek that the Gemara says, based on this pasuk, here we know that a doctor is even permitted to heal somebody. I would say, if Hashem made somebody sick, where does the doctor come to change Hashem's plan? It's based on a pasuk. Everything is in the Torah. It says, V'rape yirape. So when this person came to the Tzemach Tzedek and said that the doctor said that this person was sick, could only live X amount of time, Tzemach Tzedek said the doctor was only given permission to heal. He was never given permission to give a prognosis, or to say, God forbid, how long the person is going to live. But the Rebbe writes in a number of letters It says when you go to a doctor, you're supposed to do what the doctor tells you. Take the medication the doctor tells you to take. Follow whatever procedure it tells you to follow. Take the treatment it gives you. But you're not supposed to become a doctor and invest yourself in medicine and all that. Just do what you have to do and follow, and that'll be fine. Which means the same thing, that a person starts having too much bitachon and emunah in the process, not in the real source of the bracha. The real source of the bracha is the Eibishter, and just do what you need to do in derech hateva. Once, one of my siblings, I don't even remember what it was. I was very young, but she had some sort of a condition and she couldn't walk. And I remember my parents went into the Rebbe for a bracha. And where we lived, upstairs neighbor, we had a guy who was studying medical school. So apparently he showed my mother one of the medical books about this condition, which made her even more hysterical. So she went into the Rebbe and started to cry, and she said that she read in a book about this and this. So the Rebbe said in Yiddish, who tells you to read books and then you can't sleep at night? Like, it's none of your business what it says in the books. You do what the doctor tells you. I mean, it was actually a miracle. The Rebbe asked the doctor, at the time it was Dr. Zellickson, that he should make a picture of the bone of the leg. And the Rebbe and the doctor, and after that, everything turned around and she was healed, Baruch Hashem. But the Rebbe said, who tells you to read books and then you can't sleep at night? So what am I supposed to do? Just follow the doctor, what the doctor says, and trust in Hashem, and both together you have the bracha. So when you start doing these things, it means you're investing yourself too much into the vessel, into the garment. And that's where, that means too much thought, too much emotion. So when people in business, sometimes you're angry, sometimes you're giving up, you're in despair, and you just say, it's never gonna happen, you can't sleep at night. This is because I'm investing too much emotion, because I'm giving too much of a priority to the vessel more than the bracha. The third thing is when it disturbs other spiritual responsibilities. That very often when people get involved in their business, I mean, there's a famous story told about a person that he was a very kind person, a very generous person, and his Rebbe heard, everyone spoke about him, that he had a Shabbos table with who knows how many guests, and he was known all over the town that he was the kindest person and the most generous person and a giving person. And he went to him once for a Shabbos just to see for himself how he lived. And he was really impressed. The table was full of people, and there was a lot of people also that were very needy. He made them feel at home and they were comfortable. He gave them a wonderful time with the meal and everything else. So before he left, he gave him a bracha that he should be blessed with a lot of wealth. And shortly after that, he started to have tremendous success in business, became very wealthy, and he was so busy with his business that he no longer was able to take care of the tzedakah that he gives. So he appointed someone to take care of the tzedakahs. Didn't do that much of a good job like he did, but he had no time for that. He was so busy. And then slowly, like this, he used to invite people to come to the Shabbos table, but he had no time for this. And after a while, everything changed. He didn't have any guests. He didn't have all these activities that he had with tzedakah. And word came to his Rebbe about the change. And his Rebbe was very upset because he knew that he gave him the bracha to become wealthy. And now, as a result of his bracha, he's doing less. So the Rebbe decided to visit him again. Came to him for Shabbos. And he was shocked to see that it's true. He was sitting by the table with his family and his Rebbe. Nobody else was there. So the Rebbe was standing by the window, looking out the window, and he says to him, whatever his name was, Yankel, who's that? He says, oh, that's Baruch. Unfortunately, he just lost a lot of money. Who's that? Oh, these little children, these are unfortunately orphans. He goes through everyone, he asks them, who's this, who's that, who's that, and he tells them a little story about them. Then the Rebbe starts pacing back and forth. He was very surprised because the Rebbe doesn't usually engage in just these kind of conversations. Then the Rebbe stopped. He had a wall mirror in front of the mirror, and he looks. And he says, who's that? And he's thinking, what kind of question the Rebbe asking him? Rebbe, that's me. So he says, I don't understand. How come over there, when you're looking through the glass over there, you saw all those people? And over here, you see yourself. So he says, Rabbi, there's a silver lining behind the glass. When there's no silver there, you can see right through it, it's transparent. When there's silver, it blocks it, so then you see yourself. So I understand. When there's silver, you see yourself. Mhm. So when there's a lot of silver, you only see yourself. When there is no silver, you see everyone else. He goes on and on until he finally got it. Before, when you didn't have all this money, you saw everybody else. And now all you see is yourself. And basically, he brought him back to do what he needs to do. But this is an example. You get so involved in all these things that you don't take care of other responsibilities the way you did before. And that means that you're making the vessel too much. The fourth example is obvious. And that is, if chas v'shalom, it causes a person to compromise. That because of, I want to earn enough money, I'm not going to keep Shabbos or not keep Shabbos properly. Or because of the money, I won't keep kashrus. Very often in business, you have to meet with people, you have to travel, and you can't keep laws of kashrus in the same way. Or you feel, I must meet this person, this fancy restaurant. It's not a kosher restaurant. But if I don't meet there, he's not going to want to meet with me, and then I won't have the business deal. So I'm going to compromise on kashrus. Or the same as compromising on tznius, men and women working together, and you feel, well, I don't want them to have a look at me in a strange way, so I'm going to act not such a tzniusdik way, so it'll be acceptable. Some people who are really religious people, at work, they don't put on the kippah, they don't wear the yarmulke because it's more presentable that way. So if I'm going to compromise, even one iota in Yiddishkeit, to make more money, that's a very strong statement that I believe that my money is coming from the vessel, from the garment, not from Hashem. And that's what it means. Okay, I have a few more lines here, but maybe you look at it and you'll figure it out yourself. It's all connected. Okay, the next few days, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because Friday we don't have any class in honor of Hanukkah, we'll be learning about Hanukkah al pi Chassidus. And then after that, we'll start a new minor, Mitzvah Hashem. Okay. Hatzlacha. You're welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Very welcome. Okay, all the best.
Me? Yeah, he literally was going like that. Think about herself. She was struggling. Oh, mama.